weekend that they realized that she was gone. The FBI should have immediately jumped in and taken over.
I think once this moved from a search posture to a possible kidnapping.
At 2:28 in the morning on February 1st, a signal stopped transmitting. A pacemaker, with a kind implanted in the chest to regulate a heartbeat, had been syncing continuously with a nearby phone. Then, at that precise moment, the connection dropped. For investigators looking into the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie from her Tucson home in the Catalina Foothills, that timestamp became one of the few fixed points in a case defined largely by absence. 8 minutes later, a Ring camera located approximately 2.5 miles from her home captured vehicles moving through the area. Those 8 minutes sit at the center of what has become one of the most watched missing persons investigations in the American Southwest in recent memory. The Ring camera footage emerged as one of the earliest concrete leads in the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Recorded at approximately 2:31 a.m. and again at 2:36 a.m. on February 1st, the footage showed vehicles traveling on a road that sits roughly 2.5 miles from the Guthrie residence in Tucson's Catalina Foothills neighborhood. The road has been described by area residents as a plausible route away from the neighborhood, though investigators have not publicly confirmed whether it functioned as an exit corridor in this case. The timing is what drew attention. Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker last synced with her phone at 2:28 a.m. One vehicle appears in the footage approximately 8 minutes after that final signal. Another appears 5 minutes after that. The sequence: pacemaker disconnect, followed by vehicles in the surrounding area within a narrow window, became the foundation for early investigative focus on that footage. Authorities confirmed they reviewed the footage, an FBI source reportedly told media outlets that investigators determined the vehicles had no connection to the disappearance. That determination was characterized, according to reports, as a dead end. Retired law enforcement experts have publicly pushed back on that framing, not by asserting guilt or connection, but by questioning the speed of the conclusion. Retired NYPD Detective Thomas Ruskin stated publicly that one of the vehicles visible in the footage bears characteristics consistent with a Kia Soul. Former FBI profiler Jim Clemente stated in public commentary that vehicles captured within that time frame should not be dismissed without thorough review, given the proximity of the timestamps to the last known signal from the pacemaker. Neither expert has alleged wrongdoing. Both have framed their comments as procedural observations that the timing alone justifies scrutiny before a formal dismissal. As of this reporting, no official evidence has confirmed or denied that either vehicle in the footage has been identified. And excluded through registration records or driver interviews, authorities have not publicly detailed the methodology that led to the dead-end determination. The vehicles remain a point of open discussion in the case, and the 8-minute gap between Nancy Guthrie's last known signal and the first vehicle sighting remains unresolved. Nancy Guthrie had lived in the Catalina Foothills area of Tucson, Arizona. The neighborhood sits at the edge of the city, framed by desert terrain and residential streets that thin out as they push toward the Catalina Mountains. It is not a high-traffic area in the early morning hours. That fact is part of why the Ring camera footage drew attention quickly. Vehicles on those roads at that hour stood out. Guthrie was 84 years old at the time of her disappearance. She had a pacemaker, a device that, in its modern forms, transmits data to connected devices, a phone, a monitoring system, on a regular schedule. The last recorded sync occurred at 2:28 a.m. Investigators have stated that timestamp may indicate either the moment of an abduction or, alternatively, a Bluetooth disruption, a loss of connection caused by physical distance from the synced device. Both interpretations remain on the table. Her family reported her missing after she could not be located. The investigation that followed would ultimately draw in the FBI, the Pima County Sheriff's Department, and hundreds of investigators and volunteers. More than 21,000 tips have been received as of the most recent public updates. The FBI has reportedly reviewed thousands of hours of surveillance footage from the area. The scale of the investigative response reflects both the visibility of the case and the challenge that has defined it from the beginning. No confirmed evidence of what happened after that 2:28 a.m. timestamp. Questions about the case have circulated widely. To address several directly and factually, Nancy Guthrie has not been found. As of the most recent official statements, her whereabouts remain unknown. No confirmed cause or explanation for her disappearance has been publicly established. Authorities have not announced any arrests or named any suspects. There is no confirmed evidence of what occurred after her pacemaker stopped syncing. Some viewers may have encountered references to Savannah Guthrie, the NBC Today Show anchor. Savannah Guthrie and Nancy Guthrie share a surname but are not related. Savannah Guthrie has continued her professional duties. The two cases, the name similarity and the news coverage of each, are unrelated. The forensic dimension of the investigation has proceeded on multiple fronts. A glove recovered during the search was submitted to CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System, a national database maintained by the FBI, and returned no match. That result does not eliminate the glove as evidence, but it does mean the DNA profile extracted from it did not correspond to any existing entry in the database. Authorities have confirmed that forensic genealogy is pending. Forensic genealogy uses DNA evidence to build family trees through public or proprietary genetic databases, sometimes identifying relatives of an unknown contributor when a direct match is unavailable. The process can take weeks or months, depending on the quality and quantity of the DNA sample and the resources available to investigators. No timeline has been provided for when forensic genealogy results might be available. Officials have not indicated whether other physical evidence is under analysis. One aspect of the investigation that has drawn sustained public attention involves the handling of a vehicle belonging to Nancy Guthrie's daughter, Annie Guthrie. That vehicle was taken into custody by investigators and, as of the most recent official statements, remains in custody as part of the ongoing investigation. The retention of a family member's vehicle in a missing persons case can prompt questions about the direction of the investigation. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer addressed this publicly, noting that the use of consent searches conducted with the agreement of the individual rather than pursuant to a warrant, typically indicates that investigators lack probable cause to compel a search through legal channels. Coffindaffer's observation, made in public commentary, suggests that investigators are pursuing cooperative channels rather than adversarial ones. Sheriff Chris Nanos of the Pima County Sheriff's Department has publicly stated that family members have been cleared. He has not elaborated on the specific basis for that clearance in public statements. The retention of Annie Guthrie's vehicle, officials say, is consistent with standard investigative practice in cases where physical evidence is being assessed. Over an extended period, processing timelines for vehicles in active investigations can extend significantly beyond what the public might expect. Particularly when detailed forensic analysis is involved, it is important to note clearly, the retention of a vehicle does not imply guilt. It reflects the evidentiary thoroughness that investigators have stated they are applying to this case. No charges have been filed. No individuals have been named as suspects. The midpoint of any extended investigation often brings procedural shifts that outside observers can misread. In the case of Nancy Guthrie, one such shift occurred when the FBI began reassigning some agents from the Tucson-based investigative team back to Phoenix. The Pima County Sheriff's Department also adjusted its detective allocation on the case around a similar period. Officials from both agencies have stated that the investigation remains active. They have attributed the personnel adjustments to the natural evolution of an investigation as it transitions from high-volume immediate response, managing thousands of tips, reviewing thousands of hours of footage, to a more targeted phase. Focused on specific leads and forensic processing, experts in investigative procedure have noted publicly that the volume of footage alone, thousands of hours reviewed by FBI analysts, may explain why large teams were deployed early and why those teams would begin to contract as the initial review phase concluded. Forensic analysis, genealogy, and DNA processing are typically conducted by smaller, specialized units rather than large field teams. Some commentators have raised questions online about whether the personnel shifts reflect a reduction in investigative commitment or suggest internal disagreements between agencies. Sheriff Nanos has publicly denied that there has been any obstruction of federal cooperation. No official evidence has confirmed allegations of agency friction or institutional interference. Those claims remain unverified and should be treated as speculation rather than established fact. The investigation, as described by authorities, has not been suspended, deprioritized, or closed. The reward structure in this case is notable. Nancy Guthrie's family has offered a $1 million reward for information leading to her safe return or to the identification and prosecution of those responsible for her disappearance. The FBI has separately announced a $100,000 reward. The combined value of those rewards reflects the seriousness with which both the family and federal investigators are treating this case. Rewards of this scale are not routine. In most missing persons investigations, rewards, when offered at all, are substantially lower. The seven-figure sum offered by the family represents one of the larger private rewards in recent missing persons cases in the United States. Whether it has produced actionable leads beyond the 21,000 tips already received has not been publicly reported. Returning to the sequence that opened this investigation, the 2:28 a.m. pacemaker disconnect, the 8-minute interval, and the vehicles. Captured on a Ring camera 2.5 miles away, the FBI's determination that the vehicle footage was a dead end, communicated through an unnamed source to media outlets, has not been elaborated upon in official public statements. The methodology underlying that conclusion has not been disclosed. Retired experts have questioned it. Officials have not responded to those specific questions in public forums. The procedural contrast here is not an accusation. Investigations make determinations. Retired experts critique them from the outside. That dynamic is ordinary and expected. In high-profile cases, what is less ordinary is the absence of public detail about how a conclusion was reached on what was, by timing alone, a notable piece of evidence: the 8 minutes between the last known pacemaker signal and the first. Vehicle sighting remains a gap that has not been publicly closed. Whether it will be addressed in future official statements or whether additional footage review will change the current determination is not known. The investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance involves multiple intersecting evidentiary threads: the pacemaker timestamp, the Ring camera footage, the glove and its non-matching DNA, the forensic genealogy process in progress. Annie Guthrie's vehicle still in custody. The 21,000 tips, a portion of which are likely still being assessed. Each of those threads represents a channel through which new information could emerge. None of them has produced a publicly confirmed breakthrough as of the most recent official statements. Investigators have been consistent in describing this as an active case. The Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI have both stated publicly that they continue to pursue leads. The forensic genealogy component in particular has the potential to produce identification of previously unknown individuals. Though that process operates on its own timeline and has no guaranteed outcome, there are things that remain clearly unknown. Whether Nancy Guthrie left her home voluntarily or was taken against her will has not been officially established. The circumstances surrounding the 2:28 a.m. pacemaker disconnect, whether it reflects proximity change, device failure, physical movement, or something else, have not been confirmed. The identity of the vehicles in the Ring camera footage, or whether they have been formally identified and cleared, has not been publicly confirmed through official channels. The investigations is ongoing. No arrests have been made, no charges have been filed, no suspects have been publicly named. The family's $1 million reward and the FBI's $100,000 reward remain available to anyone with verified, actionable information. Anyone with information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is asked to contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department or the FBI's Tucson field office directly. Tips can also be submitted through official federal tip lines. Investigators have emphasized that verified information, even details that seem minor, can be meaningful in cases where physical evidence is limited. The case remains open. The timeline beginning at 2:28 a.m. on February 1st has not yet reached its end. Word count, approximately 2,850 words format. Faceless documentary script. Visual-only production, all allegations attributed. All speculation labeled, advertiser safe.